Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating educational chapter, all about building a school habitat garden. We're going to uncover how this curriculum takes a massive, honestly overwhelming global crisis and turns it into a hands-on, local solution that anyone can understand. If you love seeing how structured planning can create real-world ecological change, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive straight into our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be hitting 5 key areas. First, the urban habitat crisis. Second, building a mini sanctuary. Third, planning your garden space. Fourth, observing the local wildlife. And finally, showcasing and reflecting. Let's get right to it.
All right, part 1, the urban habitat crisis. We've got to start with the core problem that makes this whole project so urgently necessary. To really grasp this, I want you to imagine being suddenly evicted from your home, just completely losing the safety and comfort it provides overnight. That is the harsh, urgent reality forcing wildlife into totally unfamiliar urban territories. As human expansion just paves over farmland and forests, it's exactly why we're seeing an increase in sightings of animals as large as leopards or wolves in cities and towns. Their homes are quite literally shrinking right out from under them.
Now check this out. It's really interesting how different animals react to this crisis. Take pigeons, right? They originally lived on rocky cliffs, so they just swapped cliffs for concrete building ledges. They adapted to human expansion. But look at house sparrows. They absolutely rely on dense trees and bushes for shelter. So when cities pave over those green spaces, the sparrows can't just adapt. Their populations decline until they simply vanish from our urban landscapes.
So that brings us to part 2, building a mini sanctuary. Because if rapid urbanization is the problem, the solution actually starts right in our own backyards and schoolyards.
And here is the real game changer. You don't need a massive government-run wildlife reserve to make a tangible difference. The source text defines a sanctuary simply as a safe place where one's needs are met. That means a miniature sanctuary, like a well-planned garden, totally qualifies. It provides the vital shelter, food, water, and space for local biodiversity to hang on and thrive.
You can see students here actually taking charge. They are stepping outside the traditional classroom to build a literal lifeline for local creatures. They aren't just reading a textbook about ecology, they're physically out there shaping an environment to support it.
Moving on to part 3, planning your garden space. Because, well, you can't just throw some seeds in the dirt and hope for the best, right? Creating a real sanctuary requires highly structured planning.
This involves a very clear workflow that basically transforms students into project managers. First off, they have to figure out what animals are actually in their area. Then, they need to consult experts, maybe chat with a local botanist or an entomologist to figure out what those specific animals actually need to survive. After that, they assess their school space for things like sunlight and materials, and finally, set up a system for observation. It's incredibly methodical.
And this planning phase gets highly detailed. Honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, because every single species wants something different. The text points out that a whole colony of carpenter ants only needs a few square centimeters to thrive, whereas spiders need wide open space to spin vast webs. Birds might need puddles for drinking, while butterflies just sip dew from a blade of grass. So mapping out all these specific food, water, and shelter requirements in this table format is an absolutely crucial, non-negotiable step.
But hey, this is a school, which means safety is priority number 1. Just as you're trying to invite butterflies and sunbirds in, you've got to strategically keep unwanted guests out. Students actually have to plan exactly how to prevent animals like snakes from taking over the habitat, ensuring the space remains completely safe for people. After all, the goal is to build a beautiful butterfly garden, not an accidental mosquito farm.
And when all that theoretical planning becomes real-world conservation, it looks a lot like this. Notice the incredibly simple, accessible materials they're using here. Bamboo poles, basic grow bags, gravel pathways. It really proves that creating a structured habitat doesn't require a huge budget, just some smart resource management.
Okay, part 4, observing the local wildlife. Once the literal groundwork is done and the garden is built, the true scientific work begins through patient, structured observation. The ultimate goal here is to build a micro-ecosystem that supports life at every single stage. We aren't just trying to attract adult animals. A truly successful habitat garden provides for a tiny little caterpillar slowly crawling on a leaf all the way up to a vibrant sunbird feeding on flower nectar. It's about sustaining the whole shebang, the complete life cycle, step by step.
To actually prove the habitat is working, students track these very specific metrics. This teaches us that success isn't just about an animal briefly flying through the yard. It's about seeing an animal actually use the space, feeding, finding shelter, or maybe taking a mud bath to cool down. Documenting those specific, real-world activities is how you measure the true success of your design.
Finally, we arrive at part 5, showcasing and reflecting. Because the last step of any awesome science or community project isn't just finishing it, it's sharing what you've learned with everyone else.
The curriculum directs students to present their findings at events like the Kushal Mela. They're tasked with creating digital slides and clear labels to explain the purpose, the layout, and their target species. This doesn't just build vital communication skills, it actually inspires the broader community to look at their own spaces and start their own conservation efforts.
And I absolutely love this timeline breakdown right here. Tracking the hours spent across these activities gives such a realistic look at project management. It shows the sheer dedication it takes to build a thriving ecosystem. Sure, consulting experts might take a couple of hours, but the quiet, patient observation of the animals, that takes the biggest chunk of time by far.
So, we'll leave you with a final thought, straight from the chapter's reflection section. Conservation doesn't just stop on the school project it's graded. Now that you've seen the exact, structured steps required to build a mini sanctuary, what are you going to do to protect and invite the wildlife back into your own neighborhood?